Huh. I'm sorry. You said you were a fan of the Ranger, and your class is underpowered and you feel like it needs some reworking? Guess what? You've been talking, Wizards of the Coast been listening. We've got some awesome news on this week's D&D Weekly Update, so stay tuned. Alright guys, we got a lot of good news to go through. We're going to save the Ranger stuff for last, because that's the best, and we'll get through everything else, and then we'll jump to that. So, first up, we have this cool article that came out on the official Wizards of the Coast website. Basically, they want you to submit your best Underdark NPC in your Out of the Abyss, any Underdark game really. They'll have one of their artists whip up images of it and throw that image in a future issue of Dragon Plus. So they don't want an image of like you to draw it out, but describe the NPC and they'll make an image around it. You can click right here to submit. There's a little intro here. I would have picked a different color text maybe for an orangey light background. That's just me. No words on whether it's going to be the upcoming December issue of Dragon Plus, because I don't believe there's a deadline anywhere listed on here. Introduction, maybe if we click that. This is the intro. Yeah, it doesn't have a deadline, so I guess just do it sooner rather than later. It only came out on, like, Wednesday, so go ahead and do that. Speaking of Dragon Plus, I did a review of Dragon Plus. I talked about doing it for a while, so here's me going through the magazine on my... Why is this revving up so hard on my computer? I don't know why. But anyway, I went through it myself. I did a little short review. I'll have a link again to this in the description. It's an interesting app. I've talked about it before. A little glitchy, but definitely worth your time. Check that out. Let's jump over here. We have on the D&D podcast, they have Rob Overmeyer, the executive producer of Neverwinter, the video game, that is. So he's on the D&D podcast. You can check that out. Speaking of Neverwinter, this jumped ahead on me, but where is it here? There we go. Underdark is live in Neverwinter. So the update came out on Tuesday. It is now live. So you can go ahead. We talked a little bit about it. There's a trailer right here. But you can go ahead and check that out. And I don't believe it's... No. But R.A. Salvatore wrote the one of the quest lines, so you can check out his custom-written quest line for Neverwinter, the game itself. Fight along with Brunner Battlehammer, Drizzt Do'Urden, that kind of stuff. So, very cool, especially if you like that, you know, Drizzt as a character and his whole storyline. Aaron M. Evans, the author of the Brimstone Angels series about Farida, who you can see right here, her sister Havilar, and their adoptive father Mehen, and so on. The next book in her series, called Ashes of the Tyrant, is coming out in December in hardcover. Here's a store locator and places you can get it, but she actually put up a sample chapter, and you can click here if you want to read it. I won't click here in case you guys want to read it or you don't want spoilers. But this is the fourth book in the series. Or, I'm sorry, following her fourth book. That's right. This is the fifth book in the series. It's good. I like it. It has a lot of insight into the mindset of tieflings and how they're treated ever since, and a lot of also background on Asmodeus and the whole Toril 13 warlocks and that whole thing. Really useful, especially if you are planning on playing a tiefling character. I recommend reading these books. There's a lot of useful information about perception and the way other races and people perceive tieflings, especially Farida having the one gold eye, one silver eye. And Aaron M. Evans is actually going to be doing an article in the upcoming December Dragon Plus as well, so be on the lookout for that. This was a shocker. I mean, we already know there's a million different kinds of virtual tabletops. Roll20, Dwarven Forge, Fantasy Grounds. This here, though, this is Altspace VR. This is virtual reality software that they have a Dungeons & Dragons thing for. I don't know. Let's see. This will take us to what we want to see. Yeah. This is... So, basically, it uses Oculus, the newer Oculus. And I don't pretend to know too much about it, but if we skip ahead, You can see it's a full virtual reality tabletop. How cool is that? If me and my friends had this, I think we'd be more into the virtual style of tabletopping. Just because, like, I don't know, look at how crazy this is. You can set up different screens, you can log on to websites, pull up the rules and all that kind of stuff direct in video, like while still in your virtual reality. So you can pull up images. Here they show you can go to, like, just Google search in the virtual reality. Pretty crazy. If you have Oculus, I think it's, I don't know if it'll say which Oculus it is, but I think it's the newer one. Yeah, either way, there's a subreddit based around it. Possibly worth looking into. I think it's really fun and just a cool concept. But we have a Sage Advice article, came out on Monday, and this answers a lot of questions about races and a couple of different things that there were some back and forth on. So you might, again, I'll post the links all in the description, but it goes into the Wood Elf and the Lightfoot Halfling traits for hiding. Turns out, yes, they both actually can hide while being observed. Even if someone's watching them, it still allows them the ability to hide, or at least to, you know, attempt a stealth check and see if they can hide. Let's see. You can't have more than one background. You can, if you were to somehow find a way, or your DM allows you to attack with a shield as an improvised weapon, per raw, or at least from the the devs here, you would not lose your shield bonus, your +2 to shield, or +2 to your AC. You can't use sneak attack with an unarmed strike, although you can use sneak attack with a monk weapon. Savage attacker does work with unarmed strikes. And then a very nice, simple description of how surprise round works, for those of you who don't understand that. A couple of spell confirmations, and again, more of the useful D&D resources here. They also released, because they broke the $100,000 dollar donation for Extra Life, look at this, super high-res images of the entire Sword Coast. This, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe this is the image that's found in the front of the Sword Coast Adventure Guide. This is free. You can just download this right from their web. There's a medium res and a high res version. This was going to be the $100,000 reward if we made it on the Extra Life. Well, they just did us a solid and released it anyway, so very cool stuff. I already talked about my Dragon Plus review. One more quick thing, again, shameless self-promotion. We also added a new series. We kind of did it once before, but now it's going to become a mainstay. Tuesday nights, we do an in-person, as you can see, me and my friends, we do an in-person live stream of Dungeons & Dragons. We're currently playing through Lost Mines of Phandelver, but going forward, we're going to continue on a custom-made campaign after this. But that goes from about 8:30 p.m. to about 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And then after that, we actually do a new show that I sort of just made up on the fly called Dungeons and Dragons and Discussions, or D3, or D&D and D, or Triple D, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's me and my players just hanging out, bullshitting, and talking about Dungeons and Dragons. We typically do this after the game anyway. We play the game, the stream ends, and then we just sit around and talk about D&D, building characters, whatever. We decided, you know what, let's leave the stream running and see what you guys want to talk about. And this week we had a ton of interaction. You can see the Twitch chat on the bottom left there, just scrolling. This week we focused pretty much entirely on tips and tricks for new Dungeon Masters. We had an awesome viewer who was just really nervous about being a DM, first time DMing. So we said, you know what? I've been DMing for 6 or 7 years. Sean on the right there, he'd been doing it for a couple years. Jake for a few months on the left, and Pat in the back did 1 day. So we had a gamut of experience with Dungeons & Dragons. We answered other questions. We're really open to any questions you guys want to ask. You can email them to us ahead of time, and we'll answer them live on the show. Or you can do what they did, show up live in the chat and ask them there on Twitch. Obviously, we take breaks for snacks. We drink beers. Pat was doing weird sexy dancing. I don't know what's going on with that. We also talked about the classic Christmas movies and all sorts of random stuff. So it's pretty much become like a D&D podcast, more or less. Slash, podcast, bunch of guys screwing around. So, I'm not going to say that you should go check it out, but we have a fun time, and we're always looking for people to come and chat with, so by all means. Now, the reason you're probably all still watching this video, Ranger information. There's a survey here you can take about Sword Coast Legends, why you are playing Sword Coast Legends, what you love about it, why you're not. But the main thing is this is results for, if you remember last month, I talked all about the Ranger survey. Go and do this, tell them what you like and didn't like about Ranger. Well, I'm probably just going to read this whole article because it's fairly short and it's a lot of useful stuff. And guys, they're listening. They're getting what we want. They understand everything's underpowered. And they're taking our feedback. This is exactly what we want. Maybe a couple more, splat books now and then, but let's go with this. So, in our last survey, we asked a number of questions about the Ranger class overall, an example of a new Ranger class built from scratch, featuring levels 1 through 5. The class was an attempt to get to the root of dissatisfaction we've seen with the Ranger and determine what changes, if any, we should make to the class in the future. There are two interesting elements that emerged from the survey. To start with, the 2nd and 3rd edition versions of the Ranger were the most well-received versions of the class. Agreed. These two versions mixed an animal companion with wilderness skills, spellcasting, and a unique fighting style focused on wielding 2 weapons. 3rd edition added an archery option. They seem to match closest with the ratings given to the design direction outlined in the Ranger article. The concept of the Wilderness Champion and the Defender along the lines of a Paladin isn't very popular, but people do like a Ranger who can survive in the wilderness through a combination of skills and magical abilities. Given that background, it's no surprise that a Ranger class that de-emphasizes magic and lacks a full-time, in-the-flesh animal companion received fairly poor ratings. For the next step, we'll take a pass on redesigning a Ranger that focuses more heavily on the animal companion and makes it a default part of the class. That approach allows much more of the Ranger's core power budget to go toward the companion. You can think of that budget as the total effectiveness the class brings to bear, spread out across its class features. The initial 5e design pushed the animal companion into the Ranger archetype choice, requiring it to sit atop all of the core class features. By folding that choice into the core class, we have a lot more power to play with. I mean, again, hold your hype till we actually see the final results, but guys, that sounds like it. Take the animal companion, which is something that I suggested in my initial Ranger fix that I came up with myself. Take the initial animal companion, make it a full part of the class, and then if you were to live in the current 5e thing, every Ranger gets an animal companion, and then make 5e Ranger better. Like, their companion be better. Like, Hunter Ranger would have a companion, it would only be okay. 5e Beastmaster companion would be better than a Hunter companion. But make the animal companion a part of the class. Animal companions, mounts, familiars, those are very big. People love to do that. They kind of disincentivized mounts and familiars to an extent. Not as much as an animal companion. Granted, now familiars and mounts are created from magic with spells that last till they're destroyed. So that's good because you don't lose experience if they die, and you can just summon them again with a recasting of the spell, whereas an animal companion is an actual physical animal that exists in the world, and it takes another 8 hours to get a new one, which is fine, but, make it worth your while. You're putting all this effort into making this part of your class, and you're just letting it go completely. So I think that focusing and making... You know what? I used to love the fact that Druid had an animal companion in Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, but let's be honest, Druids were ridiculously OP in 3.5. The spellcasting alone made a Druid, like, a powerhouse, and then just giving them this OP animal companion as a supplement to their damage was nuts. Just something that most other classes couldn't even come close to competing to. So, maybe not allowing the Druid to have an animal companion, solid choice. Maybe not allowing a feat to allow you to take an animal companion, or a spell to allow you to take an animal companion, a solid choice. But giving one class that ability to make it, like, people like that. People like that type of class. The Ranger, the Pet, the Companion, the Beastmaster, the Tamer, whatever you want to call it. So building that into the core function of the class, and then maybe the archetype choices that you make for the ranger are different lines of animals. Like maybe you're a, I don't know, a battle cat master, or like a bear warrior or whatever. So like this one you focus more on like ursine companions, and this one you focus more on feline companions. That might get a little tricky just because of the lack of animals in the Dungeon Master Guide. But, you know, something to that extent. Give us an option. Don't funnel us into animal companion or martial combat. Give us animal companion and some degree of martial combat. Maybe it's not crazy things like whirlwind attack and volley. Maybe it's just like at level 12 or level 10 or whatever it is, we just get options to take the dual wielder feat or the sharpshooter feat. Just give us the feat option or the benefits of them or something similar to that as like a core piece, and then make our archetype choices really unique and interesting. If you look at a lot of the other classes, they do provide unique and interesting things that, you know, you want it to be a tough decision when you're making your archetype choice. Do I want to go Vengeance Paladin and at level 20 have badass angel wings and fly around and become this Vengeance Angel of Death? Or do I want to go Oath of the Ancients and have half damage from spells at level 7? Or do I want to go Oath of Devotion and have my charisma modifier to my attacks for a minute every short rest? Like, or do I want to be focused more and all my summon spells have extra health? I can animate more dead. I can be a blade singer and fight with a sword. I can blow up people with fireballs and protect my friends. Like, well, for a wizard. Give people options that they clearly want to have to sit there and be like, oh, I don't know which one I want to choose, but I still have a solid base class to go off of. Not like, well, I could do almost no damage and have a crappy animal, or do a shit ton of damage with my bow. Well, I'm going to choose this one because it's just better, and the core class suffers because of that. Make the core class better and give us unique, interesting options. I'm pumped. Unfortunately, they don't give us a timetable. I feel like we're not going to see this year. I hope we don't have to wait for a new book, because if it's anything like the Sword Coast Adventure Guide, it's going to take a year to get us this update. I feel like this is going to be something they're going to give us, maybe not in an Unearthed Arcana, maybe a Dragon Plus, but like Unearthed Arcana is kind of playtest stuff. I want like an official, almost like an errata-style article that's like, boom, updated Ranger, here you go, it's ready to go. Go forth and play. You can guarantee that I'll be monitoring this closely as more updates come out, so feel free to stay tuned to this channel. I do these updates every week for a reason, because crap like this comes out and it slips under your radar, and like your average D&D player buys their books and might not know about any of this stuff. So this is why I do this. But anyway, sorry guys, I got a little passionate there. Ranger is one of my favorite classes in 3.5, and it's heartbreaking. It really is in 5th edition, because I want to play one, and the fact that I have to sit there and min-max for hours with different builds and different races and different feat options, take this many levels of Ranger, Rogue, and Fighter to make it worthwhile is not what it should be. So I just get a little heated about that, that's all. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about these. Hopefully, we'll see you guys Tuesday night at around 11 p.m. Eastern Time for some more Triple D action. Bring your questions. Ask your questions here on this video in the comments. We'll answer them there. We get to every question. If I can't get to it there, I answer them here on YouTube. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm thinking about making this coming episode maybe mistakes that Dungeon Masters make. But, you know, I'm always up to answering questions and letting that drive where we go discussion-wise. Anyway, guys, have a great weekend. If you're going to be in Massachusetts at Super Mega Fest, I'll be there. Maybe I'll see you there. But anyway, until then, happy gaming.